Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today at our Tools and Tips workshop. My name is Yasmin Elad. I'm Head of Business Development at the Retail Innovation Club. Today, I'm excited to have with us the amazing Christine-Russo. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Yasmin.
Hi. Christine has years of experience working with technology companies, helping them to overcome cultural differences in order to nail that meeting. So today we will have the opportunity to learn what it takes to work successfully with retail executive. Let's start with a short introduction, a short movie from Christine, and we will follow it with question.
Okay, so you're a tech founder and you have an idea. In fact, it's a great idea. And you bring it to market for the big deals, but I'm here to break it down for you. Connecting with retail executives is complex and elusive. Tech companies are often too deep in the weeds of their technology to effectively sell their product. That's where I help. Successfully connecting leans more on the power of words and psychology. Don't panic. We got this. We will nail this meeting. You get one shot and you can't not do this. With the retail executive at the center of this, both you and they will be very happy. Hi, I'm Christine-Russo. I run the Retail Creative and Consulting Agency. We specialize in helping tech companies close those C-level, crucial meetings with retailers. And I am opening applications to members of the Retail Innovation Club. My thanks to Oren, who I met pre-COVID back in New York City. My career started in Deloitte Consulting, and then I went to Global Retail Development. I am a FIT graduate school professor, and I also was the Chief Strategy Officer of the Robin Report. My career experiences help me help you as a startup. I invite you to apply, and thank you.
Christine, again, thank you so much for being with us. Can you please tell us about the state of the innovation in US retail?
US retail is sort of the poster child for innovation in the retail sector. However, that can be deceiving. There are sort of four buckets of retailers that we know about. We have the direct to consumer, sort of a little more innovative. They started online, they're digitally native. They're now starting to open stores. And from a digital standpoint, they're very savvy. From operating stores, they're not. That's a great opportunity for retail tech solutions to come in and really help automate and add technology to a very open-minded community. Then you have sort of more traditional retail, which can be described as maybe someone who started as wholesale and then had stores, or maybe big box. There's a little bit of a legacy issue there. You have some layover management. Maybe they're not as innovative. And while the Amazons and the Nikes of the world lead people to believe that all of American retail is hungry for all different types of technology solutions, the case is not, that's not really the case here. So the most important thing is that a retail technology solution is identifying a short-term challenge and able to solve it, and while also partnering for long-term innovation.
I can hear from what you're saying, there is a big role of fear here that is playing part. Can you please tell me a little bit more about this role, this hard role?
Okay, let's talk about retail, specifically retail corporate mentality. An important thing for someone to understand that once you've gotten the meeting with someone in the organization, that you have to understand that there is a high level of fear that those people hold in terms of having their name associated with a solution that maybe is overly complicated, overly expensive, and doesn't solve the problem. So there are a few items of fear that I just want to enlighten you to. The first is bad experience with technology. So as technology has evolved over time, people have gone into solutions enthusiastically over the years and not gotten the results that they want. So that's, there's a bit of fear there. Then there's the second type of fear, which is, well, I don't know if I want to put my flag down on this yet. It's still an evolving technology. What if something better comes along? And we'll talk about what better means. In a nutshell, better means less expensive and easier and faster to do. That's pretty much how it's defined. So that's the second type of fear. And the third type of fear, which is very nuanced. And when you're in that room, you sort of have to try to figure out which fear trigger this person has. And there's two options. The first is, will bringing in this technology let me keep my job? So are they afraid of some sort of career challenge? And that's a perpetual issue in corporate America. So will this help me keep my job? And the second fear is, will this help me finally get that promotion? So it's a little bit of survivor/hero mentality, in all of it rooted in a fear. Well, if I go forward and I recommend this, I'm afraid I might not look like I had a good handle on what's happening because 6 months ago, I recommended a different technology. And it only proves my second point of fear, which is there's always something better coming along. So we don't really want to commit. That being said, with all of that laid out for you, the most important thing is to establish your authority. And the way you do that is by comparing yourself to the other solution providers out there. The more you talk about your technology against the backdrop of another technology, flaws and all, things you can do well, things you don't do well, and compare it very much so to your players, your competition, the comfort level of the executive to know that you're being brutally honest and letting them know what the landscape is will inch you closer to having a trusted relationship. One more point on that. That's the work that executive or someone on the team will have to do. They'll have to do a side-by-side comparison of the technology providers, the pros and the cons, all of them. And when you go in with some of that work already done for them, there is an endearingness that happens to it. So the fear on the part of the technology provider to avoid mentioning other companies or to talk about areas of your solution that maybe aren't as strong as other areas, that fear needs to be overcome as well.
Amazing. This is so important to understand. So by giving him examples, you also give him the opportunity to understand better the technology and the challenges and the problems, and then he doesn't need to go and look for it, and you reduce the fear of fear. Reduce the fear, yeah. Great.
Absolutely. I like to say you want to do the work for them. They're overwhelmed.
Without even them knowing, but giving them feeling,
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Very important. We are also very aware that there is a very important impact of what's in it for me, the with him, as we call it in Israel. So do you also see it in senior level executive as an issue, the what's in it for me?
Absolutely. You raise a very good point, and it's a reminder when you're sitting in a room or pitching or at a conference and your message is how this would be great for the company, for the retailer, that's almost secondary. And this is a big generalization. It's almost secondary. It's how will it benefit this person, their department, their P&L, their bonus, their life? How will it make their day-to-day easier? Will they be able to hire less people? There's a very individual decision filtering process that's going on while you're presenting. And then, of course, if all of that happens, then it's for the greater good of the company. So the messaging, and you raise a very, very good point, and I want to hone in on that. The messaging in that meeting, to nail that meeting, is to really target an individual's benefits baked into how the company benefits. So understanding that individual in the room or the team that they've brought in is very critical in your messaging.
Yeah, so maybe learning before what is the most important challenge of this executive sitting next to you, what is the issue. Start trying to learn as much as you can about the the person who is sitting next to you. Could be very helpful in that case, right?
Very critical, and most companies do due diligence before they walk in, and that's very, very critical. And I like to script them, because in today's age of social media and social stalking, you never really want to reveal how deep you went into understanding the individuals and the company's challenges in a direct way, because it's almost creepy.
Course, yeah.
And you never want to ask them questions in the room as to how are things, what's your biggest challenge? Like, you kind of already have to know that.
Yeah.
The technique that I tell people is to position, if you've identified, and you should identify one of their challenges through reading articles about them, or doing just sort of company-wide reports, reading, understanding their quarterly reports if they're publicly traded. It'll all be kind of out there. You'll be able to identify it. And then you sort of say, we had a client who had X issue, and this is how we helped them. So it's almost like asking for a friend.
Yeah.
That type of mentality. If you go in there and you say, I know you're challenged with this, that would be a big no.
Yeah. Of course.
I want to comment further on that. This is a reminder to everybody listening. You've invented this, you've created this amazing technology. And this is, this may be very, this is going to have to be cut. Okay. This is a technique for people walking into these meetings. First and foremost, the person you're meeting with is master of his universe. They may have a million problems or challenges, and that's why you're there to help them fix it. But bottom line is, everything's perfect. They're the smartest ones in the room. They're the best retailer in the industry. They are the king and queen of the castle. There are no issues.
Yeah.
So if you go in, when you go in, you have to understand that it's very exploratory. There are no issues. They're running their business like a champ. And then as you start to say about your solution and how you helped someone else with this problem, you'll get them to open up about their challenges. And that's where you really start to speak to solving the pain points.
Yeah.
That's sort of the technique in which to get them to open up. But going in, they're perfect. Everything's perfect.
I want to move over to what we call the paradox of choice. Can you share a little bit more about that in your eyes?
So the paradox of choice is when there are too many options, the brain makes no decision. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of retail technology. We have some mature solutions and we have some new solutions. And in those mature solutions, there's been a lot of consolidation. So that's a good thing for the retailer and a bad thing for new solution providers in a mature area. A retailer will lean towards a solution that sort of checks more boxes rather than just one. So when you have, let's say, some fintech and you have consolidation there. So let's say a firm buys Returnly. So now instead of having two stacks, you have one. So the industry itself is consolidating, the retail technology industry is consolidating, and that works in a positive way in terms of choice. So you need, in terms of your sector, wherever your sector is, it's the benefit to go in and do that work where you're pulling up for them 2 or 3 choices, so they're not overwhelmed by all of the technology choices. I mean, the amount of retail tech solutions that are out there, it is a headwind for many solution providers.
Yeah.
I want to talk for a second about the decision tree. One of the biggest challenges in retail is knowing who actually makes the final decision. So that has to do with choice as well. But let's just talk about who's in the room. So several psychological events may be happening when you're getting a meeting. First of all, very rarely does anyone want to own something and have their own single stamp on it. They're going to get the buy-in. So you're selling at all different levels, and each one of those people have their own agenda. Some senior management will bring their team in and let the team tell them, yes, we love it. Some senior management will say, I like this and I want you to adopt it. Big difference, and it's a very different communication technique for when you're in the room. I would say that a lot more of American executives rely on their team to say, well, do you like it? Because then it's okay. And there's many reasons for that. The first is, I don't have to do the thinking. I want them to do the work. I want them to tell me. And then I can go to my senior management and say, the team loves it. Here's what they like about it. So while you are going to want a senior person in the room, you have to understand that the decision-making is collective. I find that a lot of tech founders want to go straight to the CFO, pitch, and get the stamp of approval. I've got news for you. That's not going to happen. Even going to the COO. So there's a big management style here where maybe that person might recommend to the division head. Let's say you're in ops or fintech or some form of delivery technology. So the stakeholder, the sort of person that's managing that pain, person whose P&L is getting damaged by lack of a great solution. Maybe they're too busy to find a great solution, or maybe they have some fear there. But ultimately, they want to own the process. So if you come through, let's say the CFO says, hey, I met this great company, check them out. There's already this, well, that's my industry. I should know more about that. I'll find my own. And it's mostly like, look at me, I can do this. So the portal in which you get into an organization is very important, and it's very collaborative here. So you can't underestimate different levels and different team members. Yeah. So you're selling across many levels.
Mm-hmm. So would you recommend them to look always for example, the head of innovation that is looking for the right person in the company to connect together? Or what would you recommend them? Where should they start when they look for a new company? Which position should they look? Will it be specifically to the technology that they are offering? What kind of process would you recommend?
So I think that before a first meeting, you should do a multi-tiered approach. So if you're using conferences or you're using LinkedIn, you have to remember there's the manager of the area, and then there's the people doing it that are suffering from this not working well. And as I just mentioned, management here is very collaborative. So if someone comes in with a good idea, here's that hero moment. Hey, here's this technology, bumps it up to their manager, gets that like, hey, that was a great find. And then that senior manager says, all right, let's look across a couple of other solutions, but I like what you're saying. And then they go up to their senior person and say, we vetted these companies and, Johnny found this. And that happens a lot. And I find that many in the sales cycle, they just want to go to the most senior, right? The most senior. That I'm not saying to not do that. I'm saying open your strategy to other parts of the organization. And remember that in the US, it's a collaborative management style, bottom up.
Yeah, very important. Another thing that we are looking at is the burden of education. How hard is it to manage all the new technologies, the new opportunities? How do you recommend them to approach that?
Burden of education. It's a double selling cycle. So while you don't have the headwinds of a mature technology, fintech, martech, even sort of supply chain technology now is getting mature. So the issue in those markets, as I mentioned, is that there's a lot of established players now, and there's consolidation. So let's say you're not in those areas and you're in something new. Well, you have the burden of education, which is, hey, did you know that this solution was out there for this? And secondly, we're the best to do it. So what we want to establish in terms of the communication is, first and foremost, don't get to how you are the best at something when they don't understand the first something. So this is very
the pain.
The pain.
So start with the pain always, with the problem.
Right. You start with the pain, and then you start with, did you know that there was a solution for this? So for example, let's say a company wants their payment process, their payment technology, and they offer the ability to take Venmo and PayPal physically in a store. Let's say that's an example. Many people might not even know that that's an option. I mean, they know that you can pay with credit card, and they know you can pay with Apple Pay, but hey, did you know? It's the did you know? So it's not really a pain per se, it's more an awareness. Did you know? This is really important, less about nailing the meeting, because before you can nail a meeting, you have to get the meeting. So how do you get the meeting? So you're going to do a drip campaign and a communication strategy that alternates between just the actual solution, just the solution itself, not you. That's where the burden of education is. But if you're educating them on, hey, 87% of customers would pay with Venmo if they had the opportunity, whatever research you've done and you have, and then you just tag it, burden of education campaign. And then you alternate it with, we're the best solution to pay with Venmo. And that's where that brand positioning comes in. Here's how we compare to everyone else. In fact, there is no one else. And you alternate that. You're basically providing to the retailer, again, doing that work, educating them. And then when you get in the meeting, you have to, again, take a step back, explain why this matters. They might not even know they have this pain. And then understand that you are the best solution. If I can just add, I just did a report on something called journey hijacking. And it's where malvertising comes into a website. Many people don't even know it's happening. There's another example of a burden of education. Here's this problem you don't even know you have, and we solve it.
Yeah, it's a good example. It's an Israeli company that is solving that, Namugu. I agree. So there you have a double burden when you really need, because most of the time the brands are well aware to their problems and challenges, but this is a good opportunity to remind us all that we don't know what we don't know. So it's also a very good thing to remember when approaching such a meeting. How about your brand position? What would you recommend for those startups arriving to the meetings?
So the first thing, the most important thing is to do a brand positioning chart. And why do I recommend that? And we'll pop an example on the screen so people can see what I mean. Because it's visual, you have to remember to use visual when you go into your meetings or in your emails, or all forms of communication. You don't want to talk about it. You want to show on your X and Y axis key points, price, adaptability, dashboard, whatever your defining pieces are, and show your brand in the upper right quadrant as it relates to other solutions, price and value, etc. So they instantly can see where you fit in the landscape. People don't want, if you don't want to do that, if you have fear of doing that, that's a problem. You need to have confidence in your product that you will go in there and tell them, here's where we fit in a photo. And that's something, that's what we call a leave behind. So whoever is in the meeting, they get to keep that. And if you're afraid of giving them names of other solutions, I don't recommend that. They're going to find them anyway. You might as well help them out and be available to answer questions, even as they're evaluating other companies. Be available to them. So that's a brand positioning. You have to be fully transparent on where you sit in the landscape.
Mm-hmm. So you have to be fully transparent and very confident in what you do when you come to the meeting, right? The meeting, you are arriving to the meeting, please let us know what not to do.
We covered a lot of that, but let's just go through it in terms of
Let's wrap it up, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what not to do? You're not the smartest one in the room. You may be the smartest one in the room, but don't go in as the smartest one in the room. Tell executive and their team, most industries, it's a rough road. It's like what they go through to get to where they are and keep their jobs. It's a very rough road. They know their business. Maybe there are legacy issues that have kept them and their department from excelling. And so there might be some, what we look at, we in the innovation world look at as like, right? What are they doing? Well, guess what? They're king of the castle when you go in there. Mm-hmm. That's really, really important. The level of respect and giving them the power of the room. And you're there just like the AC goes on. You're there to serve a function. Your technology serves a function. You're behind the scenes. So who's the hero? Let's be very clear. The retailer is ultimately the hero, and you're there to make them look like a hero. So what not to do? Don't ever try to think that you may have landed a big client that sways the authority over to you. Another thing not to do, and I've had clients do this. If you go into, when you go into a meeting, especially at the C level, and in your deck, you're preparing information. Now, what I'm trying to say is a lot of presentations want to contextualize their service. So why we matter, why this matters to you. Okay. I've had a client go into a meeting with the chief customer service officer and put in the meeting a report from McKinsey on why X solution is good for business. Why should you not do that? Because you think, oh, well, I'm going to get a voice of authority in here. Because the person in the room is the voice of authority. You don't want to say to them, this is important because McKinsey says it's important. Mm-hmm. It's important because they say it's important, or they don't say it's important. You don't want to sort of minimize their authority.
Yeah.
So there's a time and a place maybe, and I can certainly get into when McKinsey data is important. But in the case that they're willing to speak to you because you provide a service and they are doing it but not doing it well, you're well past McKinsey saying that it's important. So be very careful with that. That sort of goes back to that psychology of the power of the room. And that's a really critical piece. Understanding the decision tree, never minimize people who are, let's say, punching at a lower weight. So if you get bounced to someone not at the senior level and you're the founder and you think that they're not an important part of the process, understand American management style is very collaborative, very bottoms up. You are selling to those people as well, especially tactically. And we can do another webinar where this may seem obvious, but let's just mention it. At the senior level, they want to kind of focus on the results. And as you go down, they want to know that it's easy to use. A big question will be sort of the onboarding. What's the pain point? There's a big blockage to, well, I want to do that, but I just don't have the bandwidth to go through the learning process.
Yeah.
So the more you can speak to that and make that kind of easy to understand and make it easy in your product, that would be helpful. So those are some of the takeaways from this session. It was great, Yasmin. Thank you so much.
Thank you for us. Thank you so much for speaking with us. We enjoyed it very much. And I look forward to having you in the future.